Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this fireside chat on To the Moon and Beyond, Innovations in Inclusive Space Education and Outreach. My name is Xing, and I'm from the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. I am an Asian woman with shoulder-length hair. I'm wearing glasses, a black blazer, black pants, white shirt, and a scarf. So today I'm very happy to be joined by two distinguished guests today. So they're going to tell us more about the special projects that they're doing to make space sciences more accessible to everyone. So when people think about space, the first things that come to their minds are perhaps the astronauts, rockets, and maybe some awe-inspiring pictures of stars, galaxies, and faraway planets. But to assume that sight is the only way to appreciate science, we are missing our entire bunch of people who are blind or visually impaired. So you may ask me then, what should we do about it? Well, that's why I'm going to reach out to the two experts over here to tell us more. First, we have Professor Cassandra from the College of Charleston. She's also the director of the NASA Space Grant Consortium, and she works with NASA on a series of Braille books. Next, we have Dr. James TRAYFORD from the University of Portsmouth, who will tell us more about the audio universe and sonification. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Great. So if I may, I'll start with Professor over here. So please tell us more about how you got into what you are doing. And I see that you have a very interesting book on your lap. So please, take us from here.
Oh, thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am a 60-plus-year-old female, and I have reddish hair and matching freckles. And courtesy of KLM, I'm wearing a new shirt and some very dirty pants, so I apologize for that. But how did I get into this? My father was an artist, and he constantly challenged my brother and I to think of things differently and to describe whatever we're seeing with our eyes closed, or think of the textures and the colors of things. And as I started teaching more and more students and audiences that had different abilities, shall we say, and I learned that students learn better when they're actually actively engaged, whether it's through color or touch or acting things out. And that one thing led to another, and realizing that the stars in space are inaccessible to some folks, the books became a fun project, and for the class, but also for me and my co-authors.
So I've seen that you brought a couple of books. Would you
Yes.
like to take us through some of them? What are they about, and how did you create these really beautiful surfaces?
Well, okay, the one I'm holding up right now is about the small worlds in the solar system, which are comets and asteroids. The cover is just an image of the Halley's Comet going by. But I'm going to just flip to the back, because the most exciting thing about this is Pluto, the small world that we saw when New Horizons mission went through. And I think one of the most fascinating parts of it is the heart. And I don't know if you can see or touch the heart here. This tactile is made with a lot of sand and some finer grains, and with the flat area representing the heart. The books, each of the books has a QR code on the front that will lead you to the NASA website for these. And through playing Vienna here, pointing to the QR code, they will lead you to our home site with the NASA survey group. And it has the content and the description of each of the graphics, and it will tell the reader or the user to flip the page when necessary, or for scale, we give different information.
So I can see that it comes with different texture, right?
Correct.
So for someone who is visually impaired, what can he learn from touching the different texture? Can we tell like the mineral composition of the planet, or what can we learn from this?
That's a really good question. Typically, we use the different textures to represent the different elevation or the topography of the features. For example, in this Pluto image, these are mountains or higher peaks versus the flat-lying areas.
So we can see craters. Is that a crater here, a mountain?
There are a few craters. That's a bad example. The next book, real quick, will show the moon, for example. This is the far side of the moon. And on the bottom, it has a cross-section, and the reader will be guided to go across the crater, and then to Sorry, this is hard to show, but there's a cross-section there, and it shows you the changes in elevation as we go from one side of the crater to another. And then there's more of a description about what the composition of this particular area of the moon is.
This is amazing. So you're actually looking at a cross-section of the moon. You can see the elevation. This part is higher. There's perhaps a mountain over here. And then we have flat surfaces, and then maybe a crater over here. This is fantastic. Thank you so much. Could you tell us more about how do you involve people with disabilities in your project? How do you integrate their feedback into your creativity and your development process?
Can we have the first slide? I think I was supposed to... I think it's on. So this shows the procedure where we're looking at on the upper left is an image of the master that we use for the sun, for example. The texture is very rough based on the images and the data we get back. So we're using actually Spanish moss that we pulled out of a tree and to give the different roughness and texture. And then that becomes one of these tactile graphics like we show. And then we engage students and educators of people with disabilities, whether they're sighted or mobility impaired. We have everyone try this out to see if they're gaining the kind of information that we want to share. We get their descriptions, etc.
So when you released your first book, I guess it was at a time when disability inclusion was not so well received, or at least among people who are not in the circle, they may not necessarily understand the importance of your work. So how do you go about motivating yourself and the people around you to support your project?
Lots of trial and error, lots of having folks describe what they're seeing and not doing a real good job of it, so having them create their own models. Going into the classrooms, working with the students, working with the educators, working with the professionals to help make things better, and just trying to share how important it is.
Yeah, I guess all of us were just going through trials and errors, iterative process to finally come to a successful model. Thank you so much. And if you can have just one last word of advice for any of our educators out there who would like to bring the books to their schools and their communities, how do you think they can reach out to you?
These are paid for by NASA, so they are free to the public, and please email me. There is, that's a really cool slide. I don't have time. We'll come back for it, but the next slide shows you the website of the survey.nasa.gov, and there's a QR code that will take you to the site that provides an email and so forth that you can request the books. Unfortunately, I cannot pay for shipping to Europe or out of the United States, but if you can cover shipping and we have copies, we're more than happy to share.
All right, thank you. So to our audience, you can see on the screen here, we have 6 very exciting books from NASA about space sciences, all Braille books. So if any one of you are interested, do reach out to Cassandra over here.
And just really quick, because we're using QR codes on this slide, it's the image of the sun and the tactile. That QR code here will take you to the sounds of the sun. That is the beauty of using QR codes now, the digital aspect. It's not just in print or in tactile. We can actually add sound, etc.
Yeah, this is an excellent point because we are trying to move towards a multi-sensorial approach so that people with different sensory abilities will be able to appreciate science using the senses that they feel most comfortable with. So with Cassandra, we talk about using the sense of touch to feel the Braille books. Now let's move on to Dr. James TRAYFORD. He's going to tell us more about soundification, which is essentially the use of sound to listen to data. That is amazing. No one have thought that we could actually listen to data beyond just looking at charts and graphs. So please tell us more about soundification and what Audio Universe is about.
Yeah, so this Audio Universe project, it's basically a collective of mainly astronomers who are interested in, going beyond the visuals that we rely on so much and thinking about ways of using sound to communicate data and also scientific concepts. And this sort of approach is something that we're all kind of interested in exploring. This is something that, particularly, can appeal to people with blindness or visual impairment. So this gives an accessible channel, perhaps, to those people for them to sort of experience the data, to kind of hear the data. And in astronomy, we rely so much on visuals. We can take these beautiful images of stars, galaxies, planets with telescopes, and that works really well to draw people into the field. But what we want to do is make sure that people are, so once people have been drawn into the field like this, if we're just saying, look at these pretty pictures, then you're not necessarily appealing to people who can't perceive those images, right? So one of the things that we wanted to do, as well as people with blindness and visual impairment, was also thinking about people with different sensory preferences or different learning styles. There's this idea that you can use a multimodal approach to appeal to people with different sensory preferences, and actually they can work together to improve people's learning. And just everybody as well, right? It's like it gives us a new perspective on the data. It gives us a new way of thinking about data. And in science, we're always looking for new perspectives on data, because that's how we can make new discoveries or discover new things, get new insights. So, yeah, one of the main things that we'd been put together so far is this tour of the solar system planetarium show, which is basically focused on using trying to create the first of its kind planetarium show that's fully understandable without the visuals. We have visuals, but even if you can't perceive those visuals, you should be able to understand the show. And that's by using a combination of narration describing what you're hearing, and then sounds, where the sounds are representative of different aspects of data, things like stars and planets. So we put a lot of work into producing this show, and we particularly wanted to make sure that we were in contact with people with visual impairments. So in this kind of loop of like getting feedback and working out, is this working to communicate the things that we want to? So that's a really important process, is communicating to different people with different levels of understanding of science, different levels of visual acuity, and then also people who work with people with visual impairments and understand their learning needs. So altogether, this it went into making the show, and it's a really fun process. And we got incredible feedback. There's lots of things that we might do differently or we learned from doing it. But just the fact that we provided something that was fully accessible to them in this way, we got some really great feedback, and trying to sort of scientifically analyze that feedback and make sure that we can keep improving and prove to the scientific community that this is really worthwhile to do. So I think we had one example, and I'm just going to set that up. So this is an example of the stars appearing at night. For people who are sighted, you might be familiar with this idea of going out on a dark night and seeing bright stars, and then over time you see dimmer and dimmer stars as your vision adjusts to the darkness. We wanted to make an analog to this in sound. So in this case, you are hearing the stars. So you hear the brightest stars first, and then over time you're hearing dimmer and dimmer stars as they appear to us. And we model the stars as chime sounds, and we can also tell something about the color of the stars. Bluer stars have a higher pitch, and redder stars have a lower pitch. So you can also get color information, which is very important for us as astronomers. And one of the cool things about this is we can use full surround sound to actually map where these appear in the sky. So if you're in a planetarium with surround sound, you can actually hear where in the sky these are. So I think we've got a clip that we can play. Yeah, so that was this example, and this is this way of communicating the stars at night, something as simple as that, for those with visual impairments. And this works well in a planetarium, but we can even we can actually use technology like virtual reality to work as a sort of personal planetarium. So you can repurpose this technology, which is mainly based on visuals, to use their sort of head tracking so that it knows which way you're looking, so it can make the sound like everything's coming from the right place in the sky. And we're trying to work on these different ways of accessing this kind of outreach material for people with visual impairments.
There's something really interesting about using sound as a way to analyze data, because compared to other forms of visual representations, sound is multidimensional. With just one sound, you can use the volume, the frequency, the intensity, the timbre, and other parameters to describe a certain characteristic of the data they're looking at, rather than just having, let's say, X and Y axis, which is just two-dimensional. So having sonification is extremely exciting. But yet we know that sonification itself is not really mainstream yet in the scientific research community. So could you perhaps tell us a little bit more about why is that the case?
Yeah, so I think it's like a lot of people just haven't considered sound, right? It's like your mind, that we're so embedded in this idea of this visual approach and looking through telescopes, even though most of our telescopes are like digital cameras now. You don't actually look through them. But yeah, I think this idea of using sound, and everyone I've talked to about this kind of approach has been like, wow, yeah, this seems like a good approach, right? And it seems like just a new way. It can only sort of add value, right? If we do it well, you're adding sound on top of what you can already show visually. So I think really it's just a case of like demonstrating this working in a few different contexts and hopefully getting the community to really pick up on this and experiment with sonification themselves. That's why we developed this tool called Strauss, which is the sort of Python code that we're trying to make available to all scientists as a free and open source thing, so they can sonify their own data and use it to present their data to the public. If you can get sonification to sort of catch in the field in this way, we can sort of integrate it in such a way that it outlives, a project that's aimed specifically at certain audiences. Like it can go long into the future. That's the hope.
So I understand that you lead the project called Eyes in the Sky. So what other outreach projects do you have in the pipeline? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, so this project, we've been quite ambitious in trying to sort of appeal to very broad audiences, down from sort of the educational level, like this stars appearing example that I showed, up to really like technical tools that people could use if they want to become astronomers. So if you are visually impaired and you wanted to become an astronomer, there are ways that we can use sound to explore data, particularly what we call spectral data. And sound can even potentially be more effective at this because you can hear about 10 octaves, so 10 doublings of the frequency. It's a big range. Compared to color, you can only see 1 octave between about 400 nanometers and 800 nanometers, if you want to get technical, which I always do. But so you can actually use sound to perhaps give you more insight into the data.
Yeah, but just talk about this point. You're signaling that we need a lot of training. It seems like you need to be trained both in science and in listening, in active listening, in order to be able to use sonification. So where can someone go to get training in these areas?
Yeah, so we really need to sort of build these resources up, and I think just sort of playing around with the tools and playing around with the examples is a good way to build up this experience. We have our website audiouniverse.org where you can find out more about the project, and we hope that through presenting our own examples and getting more scientists and analysts to create these examples, we can sort of build up the best ways of doing it and build up an understanding to sort of catch up with our visual approaches.
Right, great. So for the last 10 minutes, I'm just going to go through some questions addressing to both of you. So if you have any comments, please feel free to just jump in. So you guys have been involved with education in space science for students with disabilities for quite some time. So what do you notice are some of the main barriers to them getting access to a good science education?
Gosh, that's a good question. Number one, confidence in themselves. Their lack of believing in themselves and that they can actually learn something. Their teachers also there may be barriers. And in some cases, unfortunately, parents don't think that these children can learn in different ways. So by trying to make it exciting and engaging and hands-on and explore through different means, we can bring them in and show them what's possible for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this multi-sensory approach can really help to hopefully break those stereotypes, right? This idea that, you know, you can only use visual methods. Well, maybe if you can use tactile methods or you can use sound, then suddenly people will think, oh, this is for me. Maybe I can work with this. Maybe I can understand this field better.
But it often seems that it is easy. The entry point when it comes to primary and secondary school education seems to be much easier than for students trying to gain higher education into space science. So what do you think scientific and academic institutions can do to make it more accessible for students who want to do space science at a higher level? We are talking about graduate, bachelor, graduate, postgrad.
I think the professors, like me, have to say heck with the old ways, and it was overcoming a lot of barriers. In fact, at one point I brought a hula hoop into my class to demonstrate tides, and I almost got fired because I was doing something beneath my college level. Yes, it was. But the students loved it, and it made a difference. And so we did more and more kinesthetic and multisensory examples and projects in the classroom.
Yeah, and I think you know, just working on the sort of resources for people to just deal with the data, you know, like a lot of this kind of stuff doesn't exist. Like how do you kind of take a big data set and start exploring it if you don't have access to visual methods? Everything's set up to do things in that way. So, you know, hopefully if we can incorporate things like sound and touch as new ways of accessing the data, then it becomes a feasible route for you to go and study and even professionally work with data, especially astronomical data in this way, I think.
And the cool thing about science and exploration is it's wide open, right? There is no boundary per se, and so we need to use our imagination and be creative. And why not use that when we're teaching as well?
Well, that's a very good advice. And so just catching on this thread. So what can educators do to make their curriculum more inclusive? You know, based on your experience, have you seen some pitfalls that educators make? Have you made some of this yourself? What have you learned in the process? Could you share with us some of your lessons?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for me, like one of the things is, yeah, like the importance of this kind of like consultation, just keep trying things and testing things. It's funny, for example, you know, with something like sound, how you can sort of in some way like hack into people's intuition, you know, like a massive thing should make a deep sound, right? Like, or like, you know, maybe a metallic, if something's made of metal, maybe it should sound like zzz, or something like it should sound more metallic. And all these kind of things you learn about by talking to people and understanding experiences. And obviously, you know, people with visual impairments have unique perspectives on these things. Maybe they don't make those same associations that people, sighted people do. So it's really important to understand what associations they make and use those to the best of our ability.
You know, I would like to put on a very interesting example talking about this sound association. I actually hear this example from one scientist who's working on soundification. So if I can just pose a question to all of you. So just imagine, there are I have a lot of coins in a bag. So would you, do you think that the sound that you hear, should it be louder or softer?
If you're jingling the coins in a bag, or if we drop the coins in a bag, I think you're going to hear them tinkle against each other. Some may fall away from the rest of it, so it might be softer. I think it might be very like a bomb going off. It depends on how it falls.
You know, I think this is a question that I'm going to review the answer at the end of the day so that other people have more time to think about it, because it's the opposite. I'm just going to give you a clue. It's the opposite. A lot of people like us who are sighted, we think of XY graph, and we think of the chart going up. So we would think that the heavier the coins, we should expect a higher volume. You know? But I'm telling you that the answer is the opposite. So please think about it. At the end of the day, then one of you is interested, come to me and I'll tell you the answer. It's really interesting. Okay, now, would you like to carry on? Or do you have anything to add?
No, well, one thing to add, I was just asked, be creative, don't give up, believe in yourself. Challenge your teachers, challenge your parents, challenge your friends to let you go out there and explore. And if something doesn't work, try it a different way.
Yeah, I can echo that. That's great, and I think trying to, you know, something like working with sonification, it's great to realize that you know it's something very kind of new to a lot of people, so you can really kind of regain that idea of like asking questions. There's no bad questions, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions and try and understand things better. Like it's always a really useful thing to do, and to be able to feel like you can ask questions is really important.
Yeah, and coming from the technology side, what trends do you see in terms of the use of ICT, you know, technology aspects, incorporating that into education in space science?
Yeah, so I suppose we've been able to use a lot of this immersive technology, things like virtual reality or augmented reality, and that's worked really well for us in certain ways, because you can actually start to use, you know, this kind of like, you can sort of add sensory inputs on top of the ones you already have, and things like sonification works well in that way, and I think, you know, these things can have like haptic feedback as well, so like you can combine touch and vision and sound all together and really try and make something multimodal, you know, something where all the senses are involved in giving you as much information about your surroundings as possible.
I don't want to forget about the sense of smell as well. Incorporating smell for some projects or some aspects of things is very beneficial and helps you recall it later on.
Right, there are 5 senses, right? So I know that there are some scientists work on haptics, so the use of vibration to represent certain data parameters. So that is very interesting as well. So we can look forward to having a future where we can use all 5 senses to really understand and appreciate science. So for the parting shot, just 3 words to describe what you think the future of space science education would look like.
Exciting, intriguing, and beneficial.
Okay, 3 different ones. So I think multimodal, expressive, and intriguing. Let's go with that.
Wonderful. In fact, I would like to make a trip to your planetarium to have a look at the outer universe. So at this point in time, I just want to say a big thank you to 2 of my distinguished guests over here, Cassandra and James. It's been a wonderful time talking to both of you. I learned so much about the wonderful work that you're doing, and I hope that you will continue to bring benefits to the people in your community. And to all our audience, thank you so much for your participation. I hope you have learned as much as I do. And if you're interested to learn more about their projects, please go to the web pages that they talk about just now, and also to the UN Space for Persons with Disabilities project. So thank you so much, and I hope all of you will have a good day at the Zero Conference. Thank you.
Thank you.